Madam Speaker, I rise today in opposition to Title III of the Democratic Rules Package, which will allow the House Democrats to file a motion in the Texas versus United States defending the constitutionality of the ACA. This lawsuit, which was filed by more than 20 state attorneys generals, is about individual liberty and whether the federal government can force individuals to purchase a product. When the Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of the ACA 6 years ago, it did so under the logic that the individual mandate was a tax. I disagreed with that ruling then, but because we now have repealed the tax, the Supreme Court's rationale for upholding the law was applied by the district court when it found the mandate inseverable from the law and struck it down. The promise of the ACA, which we can all agree on, was to increase access and lower the cost of health care. In my state of Tennessee alone, the average premium prices have gone up 176% in 8 years, with deductible levels that are nothing more than equivalent to catastrophic coverage. Let me give you an example, Madam Speaker. The majority of the uncollectible debt in the hospital that I worked are people with insurance, not without insurance. Giving people access to a card does not necessarily equal coverage, and that's why in my district alone you had nearly the same number of people who paid the tax that actually got the benefit. In the ruling with Texas versus the U.S., the courts are giving the Congress an opportunity for a much-needed do-over. I spent over 30 years of my life taking care of patients, and in that time I never saw a Republican or Democratic disease. Pre-existing conditions can affect anyone, and all of us in the House want to ensure those affected by serious illnesses can access affordable care. Rather than keeping the cost burden on the middle class, let's work together to protect those with pre-existing conditions while trusting Americans to make their own decisions when buying coverage that best fits their needs of the family. How can we find common ground? Well, if you've ever received your health insurance from an employer in the private sector, you're covered by ERISA and its updates under HIPAA, which protect people with pre-existing conditions from being denied coverage. Unfortunately, the rules weren't the same for the individual and small group markets, and that's where the problem arose. A simple solution to this problem is just to apply those large group ERISA protections to the individual and small group market, and the pre-existing condition coverage question is solved. Whether you are for or against the passage of the ACA, it should be clear that the law is broken. Instead of continuing to support a law that clearly isn't working, why don't we come together and enact a real patient-centered, free market health care system that treats individuals and small groups like big corporations? The bottom line, the ACA has failed, at least in my state. The House of Representatives has more important work to focus on than getting involved in litigation to resuscitate a law that is broken, is causing problems for many individuals and families across America. If we defeat Title III of the Democratic Rules Package, I'm hopeful this will be the first step in agreeing that we should be focusing on bipartisan reforms to our health care system instead of wasting our time on litigation. I urge opposition to the rule, and Madam Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves the